And we're live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Keystroke Medium. I'm Josh Hayes here with Scott Moon, and on today's show we have Jo Zebedee, the author of the Inheritance Trilogy and Inniskirk, a science fiction novel in the theme of District 9. We are excited to bring you this interview, and also she has just released a short story in the Woodpress Press anthology, Explorations Through the Wormhole. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good to
I've
meet
seen
you.
lots of your other shows and really enjoyed them.
Oh, well,
Great.
thanks.
Awesome. Well, it's really good to have you.
Finally, then. What can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your writing?
Yes, so I'm from just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland, so hopefully people can understand me. And I write science fiction and I write fantasy, write a little bit of horror. Most stuff I write is quite dark. I have a trilogy just completing next month, so book 1 and 2 are out, book 3 is on its way. And then I have a sci-fi based in Belfast that's been out. It's self-published, so I'm one of these sort of trendy hybrids, do a bit of this, a bit of that.
Oh, awesome. And so how long have you been writing?
I've been writing about 5 years, so I write a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's what, three, four, at least 4 novels and a couple short stories in 5 years. That's pretty good output.
Yeah. Yeah, I have another novel coming out next year, so yeah, a lot of writing. But that's good. It works well with my life, so it's cool.
What motivated you to start writing?
Well, the Inheritance Trilogy was sort of my first idea, and it had been in my mind since I was about 16. And then I got to the year where I was about to turn, shall we say, one of the milestones, and leave it at that.
I'm way past a couple of the milestones.
Yeah. And my kids were just getting a little bit more independent,
Right.
and I didn't have too much work on, and I thought I can spend a summer cleaning, or I can go write the book. So I started writing and didn't
You
stop.
made the right choice. That's
I think so.
that's what I like to say.
Yeah, cleaning's for the birds. We don't need none of that.
It's still gonna be there when we're done writing this best-selling sci-fi novel.
I just need to
No.
sell enough now to get a cleaner.
Yeah. And so you mentioned when we did our soundtrack that the Inheritance Trilogy was your first writing adventure, shall we say? What can you tell us about how that came about?
Don't start with a trilogy, anyone. Because I hadn't even written short stories. I had no idea of its structure or characterization or anything, and I just dived straight into this big sort of epic trilogy, which was good fun, but challenging.
Right.
And I actually got to the end of book 2, and then I went off and wrote Inniskirk, thinking it might be useful to know a bit about structure and write a standalone.
Yeah.
And then I went back in and finished book 3. So yeah, so it really was a case of just literally jumped in there. I'd written a couple of tries at it in my sort of 20s that weren't very good. So yeah, it was just a case of go for it and see where we go.
And have you
But I
always
knew the
been
characters well.
for the you knew who the characters were for your trilogy?
Yeah, so that helped.
Have you always been a sci-fi fan? How did you get into writing something like space opera military? Because you don't have a military background, right?
No, not at all. I'm a management consultant, so that meant I was quite good with leadership traits and whatnot. I understood all
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know nothing about the military. So basically, my main character was in a rebel army, as so many space opera people turn up in these things.
Yes.
And yeah, and I find myself writing military sci-fi. It's very light military, but obviously you want to get the jargon right. So I actually work with a US major who beta reads all my military stuff and sort of lets me know when they're not behaving the way they should do.
Oh, very cool. How did you guys hook up?
Yeah, we hooked up via a forum, the SFF Chronicles, which is like a big UK-based forum, but it's worldwide. And he basically put up a thread saying he was fed up reading books where they got the military wrong, and if anybody wanted him to read, to give them a shout, so I did. And
Nice.
3 books later, he's still reading. So, and he's been brilliant because he only reads the military bits, and the rest of it, then he's left sort of guessing the context till he actually reads the book at the end. So it's quite cool. Yeah.
So if he only reads the military parts, does he have any? Is there ever any time where he doesn't get? Is there continuality issues with going from the different parts, or is he just reading it just to make sure the jargon and everything is there?
Yeah, it's mostly the jargon and also the mindset. So, there was one of the characters where I couldn't understand why she would stay in the army for various reasons. And, he just came back with, well, why would she leave? It's her profession. And that was the mindset that I wasn't getting. So usually what I do is a little bit of context around it, and then we just, there's the scene. So it works quite well. It's a little bit different, But I don't really read military sci-fi. You were asking what I read. I do read space opera. But
Scott, your mic's still muted.
Um, but I also read fantasy. I read mainstream. I read anything. I'm a big character reader. So if the characters grab me, I'll read it.
Right.
So going into military sci-fi was a bit of a steep curve.
Yeah.
You can always get an expert. Like you said, I was just reading a book, just started it again, how Tom Clancy researched The Hunt for Red October. And in the very beginning of the book, it says the best way to do research is to phone a friend or find somebody who knows, like you did, who's an expert. And you can get more than you can just get in other ways sometimes. So that's a great partnership you got working there.
Yeah, and you can't possibly know anything. I mean, Avondale is part political, there's a bit of romance in it. There's even a few fade to black scenes. You can't know everything that is in a book of that scope,
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the story. Tell us about your favorite characters and how the story kind of developed as you were writing it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to do, as I say, I'm very into characters, and one of the things that frustrates me in sci-fi and fantasy is where you have these sort of chosen characters who face this great ordeal, and at the end they get up and they dust themselves down and off they go and save the world. And that to me never felt right, that if you went through the sort of ordeal described, that you would come out the other side largely the same person.
Right.
So what I did was I took that trope, so it's got a very classic feel to it deliberately. And what I did instead was draw really close to that chosen one and his friends and his family. And, sort of book 1 shows, if you like, the ordeal. And then book 2 and 3 deal with the fallout from that and actually, how the characters change and develop from that sort of trauma. So it's quite different because whenever I write, I never come out of the character's point of view. So there's no omnipresent sort of here is the world and here's what you're seeing. Everything's from them. So it's a little bit of a different take on it. Very very human sort of characters.
And
yeah.
So you write first person? Is that how it's written, or limited third?
Yeah, limited third. So there's 3 main characters, and then I think there's about 16 point of view characters across the trilogy. So which is more than I normally write. I mean, Inish Carrick I think has 5 point of view, so usually I keep it very close and tight.
Right.
16's kind of a huge ensemble cast for a first trilogy. Was it hard for you to keep track of what they were doing and where they were going and who was meeting who?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a Gantt chart? They're like a project management tool, and they're like timelines.
Okay.
So I actually have a Gantt chart for the full trilogy, and then 3 separate ones for each book. But outside of that, I just have notebooks, and now whenever I'm doing the 3rd book, I was just on copy edits now. I had the other 2 books beside me doing the odd juke back to see what it said before.
Nice.
This is a question I always ask. You have those charts. Does that make it easier when you're doing like your editing and revision during the final drafts, being organized?
I think with space opera stories, you have characters in lots of different places who have to have continuity against each other's story, and that's where I find it helps, is that whenever somebody calls to somebody else to say something's happened, they're all in the right place, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's just that sort of detailed plotting and writing stage that I use it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you create all your characters in advance, or do they kind of grow organically as you're developing your story?
Yeah, I mean, my first drafts are dialogue, and that's largely it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
cool.
don't plan, so it literally is dialogue.
Yeah,
And the characters then develop, and once I have a good sense of them, usually around about the middle of draft two, then we start to fill out sort of more of the details, if you like. So I
right,
usually have an idea of them, but they're not fully formed. Yeah,
right. Well,
if that makes
good, John.
So you have discovery written. You say you've planned out the characters, but you discovery write the
Yeah,
the story itself.
yeah, very much so. I usually have an idea of where I want the end to go,
Right.
but absolutely no idea what joins the two ends of the book together.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so
cool.
Yeah.
And when's the
I
third
don't
book
like
supposed to
first
come out?
drafts. It comes out on the 24th of October, so it does.
Okay.
And yeah, we just got a nice wee launch planned and whatnot, and that's yeah, it's
Available
really fun.
Amazon everywhere.
Amazon, only online, but in and around the various bookshops in and around where I am too. If anyone's watching from Northern Ireland, they're in Easons.
I
In the
wanted
Easons,
to
I'll
at
give them a call out.
I wanted to at some point get into, because you said a lot of your stories are based around Belfast,
Some of them, yeah,
some of
yeah.
them, and I think that's pretty fantastic. It's on my list of places to visit when I become a super world traveler. Might be a little bit
Fantastic.
in the
We'll
future.
keep you for a pint.
Yeah.
So it will. Yeah, no, I also write flash fiction, sort of 75 word stories, and a lot of my ideas come out of that. And one that I had written was about two 5-year-olds set up to take the fall for killing some aliens, and that developed into an Ishkarik, although they're 17 in the book. And then I wanted a setting, and I just thought, well, I know Belfast,
Sorry.
so we'll go for Belfast.
And you said that Inniskilling is uh, a District 9 type book. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's got that feel to it. I mean, the aliens are across the world, but all the action takes place in Belfast and close by. So it's got that very sort of in close feel that District 9 has.
Right.
And there's two sets of aliens, and it's set after the alien invasion during sort of an occupation. So you have the humans and the aliens interacting with each other and kind of trying to get used to each other's culture and approach. And that's what gives it that very sort of close, sort of District 9 feel.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
And
almost an inverted District 9.
I didn't like that movie the first time I saw it, but I really enjoyed it the second time I saw it because
Very good.
I guess I thought it was something different when I saw the commercials and all that stuff, and then when I went in and saw it, I was like, well, this is not what I expected. But watching it the second time without any expectations was really good.
What movie
And
were we
I
talking
get
about?
that comment a lot about it, Enish character, that it wasn't at all what people expected. It's not like any other alien invasion story. So
Well,
yeah.
Scott, we were talking about District 9.
Yeah,
The
that was very different when I saw that the first time. I liked it, but you're right. I was like, wow, that's not what I thought was coming. So I guess that's good in a way.
um,
It's not often you get to be surprised anymore with a movie.
is Inniskilling a standalone, or is it going to be a series like the Inheritance Trilogy?
It was to be a standalone, but I'm getting quite a lot of requests to write more in that world. So there is possibly a sequel starting to bubble. We'll see.
It's got to be a nice feeling having your fans say, I need more of this. So
Yeah,
cool.
it's really surprised me how well it's gone down. I had an agent for it, and when I presented it first, it was sort of part young adult, part adult.
Mhm.
So we made it into a young adult story, and then we couldn't sell it. It was just after the Hunger Games, and young adult sci-fi was struggling. And it
Right.
came back to me, and I put it back to that adult, young adult sort of field. So we have a 17-year-old and an adult protagonist, and brought it out myself and thought, well, at least it's out there, and it's just done really well. It gets really good reception, and got a Hugo nomination, so it did. So
Wow.
that was really cool.
That's very
Um,
cool.
Man, that's
it's
big time.
yeah, and the reviews on it are just all pretty. I think I've got one star review that didn't like it, the Belfast setting, but what can you do?
Well, see,
Otherwise, Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Some one stars. Everybody says don't sweat the 1-star reviews, and some of them they you know they sting a little bit. But when you get 1 stars, it's like, I don't like your story because it was in such and such location, or I don't like your story because I don't read science fiction, or I don't like your story because that those type of reviews I don't need. They
don't
shouldn't
really
even
count.
be. Yeah, they shouldn't count at all.
And I think
Amazon should see that stuff and like that's not at all what a
when
1-star review should be.
when I'm reading reviews as a reader, when I'm just shopping around and I see those, I completely ignore those because those are not helpful. So.
I mean, I think it's Joe Abercrombie who says if you're not getting 1-star reviews, you're not being read widely enough.
Oh yeah, I mean Brandon Sanderson's got 1 stars. George R. R. Martin's got 1 stars.
Well, I looked that up. I mean, like I think Game of Thrones has like 1,800 1 stars. Of course, it's got 40,000 of
Right.
the other ones, but so there's thousands of people out there that are going to have that opinion. That's fine. They're right.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and yeah, I'm fine with it.
The first 1 star is really the worst. You get that first 1 star, and you just like somebody just punched you right in the stomach.
Yep.
But after that, it
Time
gets
to quit.
I
So
think it
I
helps
had-
though that I've been through so many critique groups and whatnot, and some of them don't pull their punches, so you're kind of used to
Right.
getting criticism. Yeah.
And and writers can leave great reviews, other writers, or they can just, try to rewrite your book in the review and stuff. My most useful review is one that just says, "Nope, I don't." That wasn't very helpful for me improving myself as a writer, but I still read it all the way to the end.
Yeah,
Nope.
I think if I'm going to get a 1-star review, I'd like to have a 1-star review that's like 5 pages long to tell me exactly what is wrong, like what they didn't like, instead of just saying, I hated this book. Go ahead and tell me everything you didn't like, and then I can
Yeah.
pick apart and see, can I fix that, or is that something that I did, or is it just you?
And
Yeah.
some people will. I've recently been doing a lot of reading about marketing stuff, and they talk about mining the reviews for things to use in your ad copy. And so you can mine the negative reviews for how to improve your writing, or maybe something that you need to work on. And then you can take the really excited stuff, and they recommend using some of those words that are used repeatedly in your ad
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah.
Like if they say outstanding, or they use thrilling military sci-fi, then that's maybe a key word that readers like. And so reviews are very useful. But sometimes I'll see a new review pop up, and I'll just let it sit there for 2 or 3 days till I'm ready to face it emotionally, because I'm sensitive.
I'm quite tough-skinned. I'm okay with them.
Yeah. No.
I'm not going to read it right in the feels. Oh, right in the feels.
Yeah.
So you've been writing since 2011, right? And then
Yeah.
you published in 2014, and you're kind of a hybrid, indie slash small press with Tickety Boo Press. Can you tell us about your decision to kind of go the hybrid route, the small press route, instead of just going full indie or full traditional?
Yeah, well, with Avondale, which is the trilogy, I was agented at the time for Inish Carriage, and when you have an agent for one book, they don't take you for your past books or your past history. They focus on the one book.
Right.
So I had 2 offers at that stage on the trilogy, which for various reasons I hadn't taken. And then I got Tickety Boo's offer. I knew Gary, who's part of Tickety Boo, from a forum. And I decided it was likely to get lost because nobody was working on it, and did the deal, which was great until then my agent dropped me whenever the book didn't sell, and then I was left with 2 books with no, so
yeah.
at that point,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bad day. It wasn't a good writing day.
Yeah.
And at that point, the focus moved on to the Inheritance Trilogy because it had the contract and was coming out.
Right.
But come the June, then I found myself with another book with no home. And I did have a couple of offers on it, but what I wanted to do with it was this dual structure, which is very hard to market. And I thought, well, I'll just go indie with it. And, I sort of wanted to learn the skills involved in actually putting a book out and promoting it and whatnot as well.
Right.
But I wanted to go traditional because I do have good bookshop links in Northern Ireland, and I'm in quite a few bookshops here, and
That's cool.
so it was quite nice. Yeah.
We'll come to
So
Belfast and look for your books and buy them off the shelf.
yeah,
That's my mission
that
now
will
in
do.
life. That'd be cool.
I think somebody turned up from England last week in the shop asking for them, so that quite pleased them.
Oh, wow. Cool.
It's very cool if you follow, for those watching or listening that don't follow Jo on Facebook or Twitter, she has a worldwide book tour going on right now with her books, and it's not that she's going worldwide, it's that her readers are posting pictures from themselves reading the
Yeah,
book throughout the world. And that's
Oh,
pretty neat to see.
yeah,
Um,
it's very cool.
I,
I just
I
want to follow the book now.
yeah.
those are like super fans. So good for them.
I
That's
saw
excellent.
one guy that posted probably 4 or 5 or 6 photoshopped photos of him at various locations holding the book. That was pretty cool too. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and
Um,
that started. My aunt and uncle took it on holiday with them and put up a few photos, and then a few other people who knew me put up more photos, and it wasn't a planned sort of let's do a big promotion like this. It was just great fun,
That's
right.
the
and
best.
just
That's the
happened.
best kind right there.
Yeah,
That's the best on so many levels because you don't have to all do that annoying pre-planning work. And I think that if it has the energy to take off on its own, then it's already going to be successful. So that's cool. I like it.
and I think people can tell whenever things are forced. I mean, the other thing I do, which I haven't mentioned, is I do a lot of blogging, and I set up my blog in order to tell the truth about writing because I was fed up with people not being able to find out what really happens when you get published or when you go self-published or whatever. And I started it just as a sort of information thing, and it's now gets a lot of hits, and it's because it's just honest. It's not put out there to be anything. It
right.
just came about.
And where's that blog at?
It's at
Oh,
josebwrites.blogspot.co.uk.
yeah, I just found it.
The
Jo
great
I
thing with
mean,
my
Zebedee.
name is if you put in Jo Zebedee, you'll find something.
good. Good to know.
Yeah.
And so you've written 4 novels, and more recently, just this week, in fact, Woodbridge Press released their explorations through the Wormhole anthology, and your short story, "The Gate of the Temples," is that right?
Yeah.
The Gate of the
Yeah.
Temple. That was released in the Wormhole anthology, which is a themed anthology where all the authors were given the technology and the world, and then they went and wrote. We have a series of interviews specific to that anthology on our YouTube page if you want to check that out. And Jo, we're recording yours after the show. But can you tell us a little bit about um, what it was like to write a short story versus a novel?
Yeah. Um, I quite like shorts, and as I say, I do quite regularly write 75 word stories and 300 word stories. So, right from really micro level. And what I like about them is that they can be quite fresh. In a novel, you're very sort of bogged down with what you're trying to get to next, and short stories can just be a nice, fresh blast of an idea. And some ideas just don't go any further than than a certain number of words, so it gives you that wee bit more freedom. So I write quite a lot of short stories, and this one here was fun because of the shared universe sort of aspect to it. I don't know how well I followed the brief, but I tried.
Well, I think as long
It's
as you
more of
had a
a,
wormhole,
I had a
you're
wormhole. I
pretty
knew about the
close.
wormhole.
it's more of a suggested guidelines type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I quite enjoy writing short stories. I find it harder to find the time at the minute, but hopefully now book three's coming out, I've got a little bit of breathing space,
Right.
which would be nice.
Do you
Yeah.
publish all of those short stories, or are they just kind of personal for you to get the writing juices flowing on your other projects?
Most of them have been published. They're available online, quite a lot of them free. There's a link actually on my website that takes people to some free to view ones.
Okay.
There's a couple on my blog, and I'm thinking of putting them together into an anthology, sort of maybe give away free on Amazon from time to time.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, they don't bring in a lot of money. I mean, you're never going to get rich writing short stories.
Right.
They're just really, I think, more for fun, and most of mine are just little things that I've enjoyed writing. So.
for fun, and they're good. They're a good crafts. They're good for practice, and they're good to work
They
out
are, yeah.
ideas and thoughts and give you some focus and stuff. So
You know, they say that you can't make money off of short stories, which is true if you just write short stories, you're not going to probably make a lot of money. But they carry a lot of weight, because if somebody reads one of your short stories, then they say, hey, I like this, I'm going to read your novels, or hey, I'm doing an anthology, would you like to be in this anthology? Or like Peter F. Hamilton, he wrote a short story that in a magazine, and an agent read it, and bada bing, bada boom, he's the UK's #1 science fiction writer. And so I think a lot of people put off writing short stories because of that very reason. They want to make money with their writing, and they don't want to waste their time. But I think, like Scott said, they hone your talent a little bit, and just getting material out there that is a whole story from beginning to end, and it's got good characters and good writing, people will like that and be more willing to jump into, a 100,000 word novel rather than just jumping into the novel without knowing who you are.
I noticed that you have a Peter F. Hamilton book that on your shelf that I don't think has been in the stores yet.
That's actually your copy, Scott.
Yeah,
I'm holding it hostage. Yeah, that's my art copy of his latest novel that I'm still in the middle of reading.
I'm actually meeting him at the end of this month. I'm at a convention in Belfast, and it's a very small convention called TitanCon. When I was at it last year too, my first ever convention panel was talking about world building with Joe Abercrombie, Sarah Pinborough, and Pat Cadigan.
Oh, very nice.
So this year Peter F. Hamilton is the guest of honor, and Pat Cadigan's there again. So it should be a real blast.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's a very fun, very small, very fun convention. So I'm looking forward to that. But, you're saying about anthologies, I think part of it is, it bringing you to a new market. So, for instance, Ian Waite, who has a very well-regarded press in the UK called Yukon Press, brought out some anthologies this year, and Peter F. Hamilton in one of them as well, keeping the theme here.
We're not name dropping or anything like that. That would be crazy. Why would you do that?
I'll have to tag him next.
Yeah.
So I was in one of those, and it definitely brings you to a new market. And it's also quite nice because, it's nice to be able to support people that are doing anthologies. So, for instance, Nathan at Woodpress Press, we've known each other a lot of years. If you can bring something to them, promo-wise or whatnot, then I think it's good to support the publishers back, because it's not easy at the minute.
Right. Yeah. Nathan's done a lot of work in this anthology. Well, both anthologies that he has out, and the one that we're working on for the end of the year. He's a really great guy to work for. If you're interested at all, check out woodbridgepress.ca, I think, because it's a Canadian website. He's got a lot of good work coming out of there.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy.
So, with your hybrid writing, and you indie published Inniskilling, and then kind of small press published the Inheritance Trilogy. Have you, now that you've had success in both, do you have a preference or something that you like from one or the other that the other one doesn't necessarily have?
I think that's the key. I mean, my next book is coming out with a new publisher who does sort of literary fantasy, which suits the feel of the next book well. So I went back to a publisher for that particular project because it feels quite mainstream. But I'm looking at a novella, a sci-fi novella, and if I bring that out next year as planned, then I will self-publish that, because I think novellas are a really nice length for self-publishing.
Yep.
And I think it's about looking at the product you have and saying, which market does it suit? I hear a lot of people, I did a very long ranty blog about this last week, a lot of people saying, I'm going to self-publish just because I can't get an agent, or just because I can't get a publisher. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's not the right reason. The reason is I'm going to self-publish because it suits this book.
Absolutely.
That's good advice, for sure.
Yeah. So I switch between the two platforms as and when, and it's nice to have both platforms.
It gives you a lot more choices, and I think I think the two combined together might be more than one or the other individually. So I think they go hand in hand if used correctly. That's what I'm seeing from some
I
people.
do find self-publishing takes so much time from the writing, because
Yep.
you are doing a lot more work, you're doing all the promotions and whatnot.
Right.
And for me, that's where perhaps I tend to make a choice for traditional just to give me some more time.
Right.
Oh yeah.
No, I
'Cause I work,
completely agree. It's funny with the Explorations anthology. I have a story in that, and that's my first traditional published work, and it's the difference. And I've published three: a novella, a short novel, and a short story, all indie published by myself. And the difference in the amount of work that you put into it uh, on the front end, getting it out, is it's kind of relieving almost to write it and then send it off. And yeah, you've got to do the edits and whatnot when it comes back, but you don't have to worry about cover. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You can just send it out and be done with it, and that's kind of nice. It's kind of a nice change from doing everything else.
Yeah. I mean, to put it in perspective, I sent Avondale 3 back, and it's away getting its copy edits now and getting its last quick tidy up before it's formatted and out. And I spent the last week turning Inish Carrick into a screenplay. And that's time that if I was self-publishing, I would have been using for the cover and setting up the Kindle page.
Right.
I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but lots of people keep mentioning it, so I'll have a go.
Right.
And
I see that Abendu, is it Abendu? Am I saying that right? Inheritance.
Avondale, yeah.
Abendo. Okay. Now I got it. I promise not to forget. Abendo.
It doesn't matter.
Kansas, it's Abendu. No, I'm kidding. Abendo book. The first book is an audiobook, I see, and I'm a huge fan of audiobooks.
Yeah.
Are they all going to be available in audiobooks, or?
As far as I know, yeah. I'm not sure of the timescale for the other two Avondales, but the Gotham Media have also bought the rights to Inish Carrick, and it's out over the autumn, so it is as well.
Excellent.
So we've got a nice Irish narrator for that.
That's cool. I think I got 2 book credits from Audible. I may be making a purchase here after the show. So
Cool. I'm getting into them now. I'm listening to PJ Straber's On Common Purpose
Okay.
on audio. So yeah, so I'm just getting into them for the first time.
Yeah, I'm ridiculous about audiobooks. It's just, I don't know. I've always I've been listening to them since you had to get all these cassette tapes and have this elaborate system to carry them around and figure out.
Yeah.
But it's a good time for audiobooks nowadays. So
it's definitely the buzz market, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. PJ Struber's book is narrated by one of our other friends under a pen name, and I don't think we used to be on our Right Stuff show. We're huge Brandon Sanderson fans, but it's almost coming to the point now where on our live show we're huge Jacob Cooper / Keith Michelson fanboys. Maybe we need to get a sign for him and just have it filled up. It's funny. I don't think I've ever talked about another man's voice as much as I talk about Jacob Cooper's voice.
You can, that's okay. You don't have to justify yourself.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I wrote him into my newest short story as a character, and where he keeps doing voices, and they're getting on his case about it. So that's kind of fun.
So with your indie publishing side, what kind of marketing do you do to get your book out in front of people?
I talk a lot. That's what I'm good at. I talk, both online. No, seriously. What have I done? So I did a book club, which I did in the UK only, because America keeps saying no to me.
They say no a lot.
They say no to everybody. Yeah, it's not.
I didn't know there was a difference between BookBub UK and BookBub US.
They now have an international one where you do the UK, Canada, I think it's Australia, all sort of in one little bundle. But at the time I did it was UK only, so that was useful. I have the blog, but I don't see it as promotional. It's just something I do. And then I'm around forums a lot. I do Facebook, I do Twitter. Done a couple of conventions this year, which are always fun, but nerve-wracking, but fun. And then I've done a couple of podcasts and whatnot, but most of it is the social media, the chatting, and seeing if the word of mouth takes off, which it seems to be. So, I think that's
And
the big one.
And apparently you
your
got some super fans going all over the world taking pictures of your book too. That probably helps.
Yeah,
actually they say this.
I've had fantastic support.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
good.
brilliant.
I'm almost of the opinion that super fans do much more for you than a book club would do.
Oh, I think so.
I
Have
think
you?
word of mouth is the big one, is starting that sort of spreading. And, I think it's something, certainly I think whenever I first came out, it's so slow, you're not aware of how slow this here, you look at people doing well and you think, oh, why aren't I? And, it's so slow, it just takes so much time to build
Right.
and
Yeah,
get that
absolutely.
reputation out there,
When I started this in 2014, I had no idea how it was going to work. I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know I was going to be doing this show, and hell, I didn't know I was going to do this show until about 7 months ago. But they say, and this is the plan that I've been going off of since I started, is that have a 5-year plan and base your writing and your success and your expectations around that 5-year area,
that's a
and
good idea.
that way, going into it, I know I'm not successful. I'm not as successful as I'd like to be now, but I'm not basing my writing or my business decisions on anything on what's happening now. I have it as a 5-year plan, and in 5 years we'll see where I'm at, and if I need to do something different, then we'll kind of go with it and see where it goes.
I think anybody who's going to be in the fiction as a profession needs to be able to do it for a long term. And then if somebody's looking for a quick, easy satisfaction and not a lot of work, then it's definitely the wrong. I figured out what I'm making per hour. Assuming I somehow get positive, it's going to be cents per hour at this point.
It'll be less than your Kindle daily page reads.
It depends if I count the 30 years before I started actually getting stuff published.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not. That's the thing that frustrates me the most. Is some people think they can just get on their word processor and then live
Right.
this wealthy writer lifestyle. But it takes work and it takes dedication to the craft, and you got to love stories. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be doing it, in my opinion. But
absolutely.
I'm quite unusual too, though, that I quite like my day job.
Mhm.
So I'm actually happy enough working and writing, and to me, I'm happy to. I'd like to do a little bit less of my day job and write a little bit more, but I don't want to actually give it up altogether. So
I think if you can find that balance, that's a great thing because it gives you a little bit of freedom and some security, and it also you get a lot of life experience from being out there working your day job, even though people don't realize it because they might have a job they think is not interesting to people. But every time you leave the house, you're dealing with characters and situations and settings and stuff. So
Absolutely.
it's
and you
writing
actually
full
have
time
to
would be
leave.
great, but
So I just learned right now during this interview that I can see the chat from YouTube while we're doing the interview. So we learned something in 7 months, which was I can see the chat during the interview.
yay!
Yay.
So we have a question from our viewers, which Chris Guillory asks, as a self-published and professionally published author, do you have any advice for those who want to go the professional route?
So that's the get an agent, get a publisher.
Yes.
I think the first thing is doing quite a lot of research into the sort of tastes of individual agents. For instance, the agent that picked me up for Inishcarrick really likes books with a strong sense of place, which obviously Belfast does. So, I think getting to know that market, there's a couple of really useful hashtags on Twitter. One is MSWL, which is the manuscript wish list, which lists different agents and publishers what they're looking for. And then the other one is hashtag Ask Agent, which lets you ask different agents different questions about the business and such like. So they're both really useful. And I think as well, it's learning to write the query letter. And I'll give a shout out to Absolute Writes Query Letter Hell. and it is hell. It's horrible. But they, yeah, I've got the scars. But they actually take your query and they will, pull it apart and say, this works, this doesn't. So I think that whole learning how to query process, but
Is that
also
is that a
it's
website?
really
I'm sorry, the Absolute
Absolute
Rights.
Right is, yeah, absoluteright.com. So it's a massive writing website. So it is. It's probably the biggest I think there is out there. And they have this little,
AbsoluteRight.com.
yeah, they have a little sort of sub forum called Query Letter Hell.
Okay.
They are also really good, and this is the other thing I put out there for anybody looking at traditional publishing, is that before you sign with any publisher, they have a forum on there called Rewards and Recommendations, and it's where writers, give their honest experience of publishers. Before you touch anyone, go
Ooh,
in
that's
and have a look.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
have a look, see what's on it. Yeah.
I have one friend in particular who has had a very difficult time with a certain publisher and had to be involved in some lawsuits, get her rights back and things like that. And that's unfortunate because I think most of them are excellent, but there's obviously some to be aware of, and having this type of service would be very valuable.
Yeah, so and they are really good because sometimes they'll even give you an idea of what sort of time scales you're going to be looking at and whatnot. And I think that's the other thing is, traditional publishing is much slower than self-publishing. I mean, it took me 3 years from starting writing Initial Character to bring it out. If I'd self-published that, it might have been a year at most.
Right.
Yeah. So it's much slower. So there's that patient build, if you like. And write something else while you're querying.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise you go mad. You just sit there pressing the bar. Yeah. But I like both worlds, as I say. But yeah, I think definitely that patience and just being realistic. I mean, I think one big question for writers to ask these days of any publisher that they go with is, what am I getting over and above what I would get self-published?
Right.
So are they going to promote me? What sort of covers are they producing, and where's the benefit? Because the world has changed big time.
I think people that want to traditionally publish just because they want to be more legitimate is the wrong decision. Some people just have that stigma, but like you said, there are specific things that they can do. I mean, they've been around traditional publishing, but you're not like more of a writer because you got some validation from an agent or whatever.
It does open doors for you, though, that self-publishing doesn't. I mean, you don't get into bookshops as a self-published author. So if you want to be in a bookshop, you're going to need to be traditionally published.
Right.
And it still does carry a certain amount of kudos that somebody is prepared to invest money in your words over and above you.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting. You mentioned at the beginning of the show, people getting into indie publishing because traditional publishing wouldn't pick up their work, and they just were like, I'm just going to put it out there, and I'm not going to really invest any time in it, and I know it's good, and they don't know what they're talking about. And it's interesting to me because I think the people that have great success in either medium are going into it with the mindset is I want to write the best book that I can and go with whichever publishing route best suits me as an author, not the easiest way to get published, or I want to make the most money here, or I want to get in a bookstore here. I want to do what's best for you as an author in the story, and doing your research and being smart about that rather than just doing it because I want to be a traditional author because I want to be in a bookstore, or I want to do indie because no one else wants to publish my stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the reasons I went with Tickety Boo for Avondale was that the editor who was being assigned to me was Teresa Edgerton, who I had worked on. I'd paid her to do an early developmental edit for me, and she got what I was trying to do with this sort of unusual approach very, very well. So that was me saying to myself, actually, she is the editor who's going to make this better. So I think you do have to balance up the whole package of what you're getting, with everything. So for Innish Carrig, for me, it was changing the story to something I didn't want it to be either this or this in order to go traditionally published. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely that balancing act.
You mentioned that you had BookBub UK.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that when you go with BookBub, I know with BookBub US specifically, generally that you make your money back on the BookBub at least.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before the show that the BookBub actually directly correlated to your Hugo nomination because somebody that read it from the BookBub nominated your book. How much of the success of Inishkarig do you ascribe to BookBub?
Well, it gave it a boost, which was useful. But I'll tell you what has given it nearly as good a boost is actually giving out targeted copies to people who I know, maybe like that sort of thing.
Okay.
I broke even on it. I sold the audio rights. I've broken even on it, and I now see it as, I'm happy just for people to be reading it.
Right.
The last sort of couple of months, I've been giving copies away free. I wouldn't say a huge amount, maybe about 100 copies to people who I know like that sort of thing, and that has been as good as the BookBub in terms of getting feedback. But I think as well, it's where the quality does seem to pay, in the sense that if a book is good, people will say, go and try this book, it's unusual, it's different, yes, but go and try it. And, it's building up reviews as well, which is just so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hard. I'm crawling up there. I think I'm on.
Scott and I were actually talking about reviews the other day, and we're almost to the conclusion that some people that get, like, they release a book and then get 500 reviews in the first 2 weeks, we can't.
I'm pretty sure that is a result of having a big advanced reader team, probably through your mailing list, and
yeah.
And you got people that they're getting a free book in exchange for a honest review, and sometimes with mine, I'm just started trying to do that, and I always make it very clear that you don't have to leave any review. I'm still going to give you the book, and I did that this time.
That's what I've done. Don't need a review. If you like it and you want to, fair enough, but I'm not asking for a review.
Right. There's absolutely no obligation. Here's your free digital copy.
Yeah.
Have fun. And I have a very small advanced reader team right now, but I got a couple of reviews on the first day of my last release, and I never had that before. So it works at least to a certain extent.
That's nice. Yeah.
Do you have an email list that you send out your books to for launch?
I'm starting it. And I've been a bit behind on that one. So I've started one. If anybody wants to go over and sign up. There's a free story if they do. It's on my website.
What's your website?
It's jozebedee.com.
Okay.
That'll Google Jo Zebedee and I appear like magic. I think there is somebody else. I actually joined a forum, and this was quite funny actually, a couple of years ago, and I found another Jo Zebedee. I found Jo Zebedee was taken, and I thought, wow. So I contacted the other Jo Zebedee by personal message, and I said, wow, we have the same name. And she said, really? She says, I made mine up as a joke.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was a forum name.
I recently, and Josh knows who I'm talking about, I recently told a guy I know at work that Verbicki is in a Peter F. Hamilton book, and he's like, really? Because my name's really unusual, and there's not a lot of Verbickis out there.
That is true.
Yeah, and he didn't believe me. I'm trying to get him the book so I can prove it to him. Because he never...
Yeah, a lot of people thought mine was a pen name, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome name. It has a nice sound
Are
to
you
it.
keeping your fantasy novel under your Jo Zebedee name?
Yeah. Yeah, because I do write fantasy, I do write horror. I've got a paranormal one coming in the back of my mind. So, I think there are a lot of authors who do it, who manage to do okay doing both fantasy and sci-fi. People like Lewis McMaster, Bujold and whatnot. So yeah, I'll go for it. It's just, I think the thing is, what follows me from genre to genre is still the close character work. That's what sets my, work. So it really doesn't matter if somebody likes close character and they like genre, then it doesn't matter whether it's sci-fi or fantasy. But if they're following me for cool sci-fi ideas, that's not what I write.
Right.
That makes...
No, I completely agree. There's two schools of thought on indie writing, and that's once you start writing to keep to that genre to build your readership. and then the other is just write whatever you want. And if people like your writing, then they're going to read it no matter what it is. And I'm kind of a mix of the two. Because I like to read everything. I read science fiction and fantasy and mystery and a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't particularly write or read someone just because they write in a certain genre, and I'll read all their stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the people I know, they read multiple genres.
Yeah, I think most people who read sci-fi will pick up fantasy.
Yeah. And they'll probably at least give it a try. If Michael Connelly wrote a space opera, I would probably give it a try. I'd be really skeptical to see if he can make that work. That'd be kind of interesting to see. I'm not sure Harry Bosch can go to space, but whatever.
Yeah, Harry Bosch in space actually might be a really cool novel, though.
It's a great tagline: Harry Bosch in space.
In space.
You need to patent it.
So you mentioned that you're a discovery writer earlier. Talk about your writing day. Do you have like a set kind of schedule that you write? Do you have a number of words that you write throughout the day? How do you keep this output of novels and short stories up with your day job?
Yeah, it's hard. I run a consultancy myself. It's a very small consultancy, but on top of that, I have 2 children who are getting up there, but they're still school age, so they're around a fair bit. So what I try to do whenever I'm not out, I mean, obviously there will be days whenever I'm out all day for work, and then I don't write. But what I try to do is clear whatever work I have by about lunchtime, and then I write in the afternoon. And whenever the kids get home from school, I keep writing, and they hand me cups of tea. They are old enough now to make cups of tea. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah, and then in the evenings is when I will go on and do most of my promotional work. So you call it promotional work. I hang out on Facebook and Twitter. Is that pro? I don't know. Yeah. So I do most of that there in the evening. And then, but I mean, I have to be honest, until about March this year, everything was quite manageable. But now I've got 3 books out, coming on to 4. Another one coming. I've got lots of final edits going on. I have requests, would I do short stories, will I, and it's now getting to the point where it's actually quite busy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm quite good at juggling, so if I'm saying the juggling's hard, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific amount of words that you try to hit when you're, say, maybe not when you're editing, but if you're writing a first draft or just drafting in general, do you try to hit 5 or 1,000 words a day?
Not really. I mean, I write fast when I do get down to writing, so I don't tend to set too much of a target. I suppose if I get a chapter done a day, I'm quite happy, and my chapters would be quite short, maybe sort of 2,000 words. Yeah. So if I churned out something like that there a day, I'd be quite happy. Editing, I tend to kill maybe 50, 60 pages of editing in a 3-hour session, so yeah. So I'm quick. I mean, I started writing a screenplay last Monday and finished it today, which is Monday. So
wow.
When I do get down to actually, doing it, writing, then I am quick. Thankfully.
Yeah.
I think mine is just trying to find the time to squeeze in writing here and there on my day job and kids and the show and all that stuff. And you're right. I mean, when you first start out, you have that one book that you write, and you can spend all your time doing it. And then when you get into it, you've got so many books going, and marketing for this book and that book, and requests and editing and all that stuff. It can get pretty hectic, because sometimes you feel like, you spend, some time over here on this project and some time over here on this project, and at the end of the day, you're like, I don't feel like I did anything at all, and I didn't make any progress on anything, and it can get kind of overwhelming sometimes.
It can, yeah. I mean, I have 2 new projects I want to start, but I'm saying I'll just get what I've got on my plate off first. And what I would expect is that my output slows down, because it's possible to keep up, for me anyway, that sort of 2 books a year indefinitely with everything else, so I think maybe.
That's the saddest thing I find, is I have so many ideas that I just can't get to them all.
We need clones.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Scott actually likes starting a new project.
I start a new project a day
every week,
but then I just let them die.
Yeah.
So No, that's unfair. I have an elaborate numbering system for all the different projects, and then so on and so forth. So.
Well, we're coming
You
up.
sound more organized than me.
What's that?
He sounds more organized than me.
Well,
I have Word files.
Well, and I always say that it's organized until you come up with a new organization system. Because like this organization was great, and then you make a new one up the next day, then you get two, and then that's not organized because now you just have. Anyway, that's probably a whole other show about all the things not to do.
Yeah.
As far as organization.
Well, we're coming up to the hour mark of the interview. Scott, do you have any questions, pressing questions you'd like to ask that we didn't cover already?
I'm just kind of swept away. It's been a great interview. There's so much good stuff.
A lot of fun. I enjoy doing these sort of things, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fun. See, you got all these things that you're getting busy with, and we'll just try to get you to do even more by coming on our show and
Yeah.
being a regular guest and things like that.
Joe, where can readers, listeners, and viewers find out more about you and your work?
I think the www.jozebedee.com. It's quite a good sort of jump off. I'm on Facebook, and again, if you type in Jo Zebedee, you'll find me. I get very lazy because if you get that, you'll get the rest. But I'm also on Twitter under JoZ1812. So that's another place. And I hang out a lot at the site sffchronicles.com. So I'm there pretty much every day, and I have my own little forum there that I keep up to date and whatnot.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Yeah. So.
And your next novel, the third book in the Inheritance Trilogy, is coming out 24 October of this year. And your short story, The Gate of the Temple, has just been released this week in the Explorations Anthology Through the Wormhole.
Yeah.
So if you guys are interested in Joe's work, definitely check those out. Give them a read, and like we said, leave them a review if you would. And I think that's going to wrap it up for the show this week. Thanks, everybody, for coming and watching and participating in the chat now that I've finally figured out that we have a chat during the show. And next week we haven't done a Right Stuff show in a long time. I think our last Right Stuff show was a couple months ago, and we've been focusing on live. Next week, our Right Stuff show is coming back with a bang, and we will have Dave Farland on the show, who is well known for teaching Brandon Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss and all those people, the big name authors. He taught them. Stephanie Meyer and Jacob Cooper will also join us on the show. We're going to be talking about revising and editing and making your book better. So be sure to join us next week, the 12th, for that. And
same time, same place,
except bat channel, same bat time.
Except we'll be coming from Australia and.
Oh yes, he will be in Australia. That'll be an interesting.
I think that this show should have been live from Belfast.
Yes, live from Belfast.
We're taking you into a pub.
Oh, we would have been there. I'd been there.
Trust me, we do some damage in a pub. That'd be a podcast. Remember, right there.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for watching.
Fun, thank you.
Yeah. Chug your beer or coffee or whatever you have. And Joe, if you want to hang out for just a second after the show, we'll get you wrapped up. And for Scott Moon, I am Josh Hayes. We have been live with Jo Zebedee, and we'll see you guys next week on the show. Thanks for watching.